Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hi. Thanks for making it out. My name is Vashi Nedemansky. That was my reel, some of the work I've done over the last couple of years. I'm a feature film editor and also editorial consultant. I got to work on Deadpool, set up the workflow for that. Gone Girl, I edited Sharknado 2. And then this year, I wanted to discuss this new film that I just finished editing called Six Below. And I'd like to share with you the workflow and the actual journey of how we made it and some behind-the-scenes peeks of what we actually had to accomplish. The two things about this film that are different from a lot of films is it's the first ever natively edited 6K project ever. So there was no transcoding, there was no other proxies. We used the Red 6K Dragon files directly out of the camera, and I edited the whole film using that only. So it saved us a lot of time, it saved us a lot of storage, and we're basically onlining the film the whole time. The other thing is I'll be able to show you is it's the first ever Barco film. And Barco, for those that don't know, it's a 3-screen process where you're watching a movie on 3 equal movie screens. In the past, like in Star Trek Beyond, they did like 25 minutes or they expanded the footage. But this film here, Six Below, is going to be shown in both formats, the 3-screen process and this. And I'll be able to show you how we did that. So thank you again for coming out, and let me start with some of this stuff so we can see what we got going on. The easiest way is this is the film Six Below. It's starring Josh Hartnett. It's coming out later this year. It's basically a survival film set in the mountains. He's a snowboarder that got lost, and he survived 8 days by himself, which usually they said couldn't even be done. To give you an overview of our process, here's how we broke it down, just to give you a start so you know. 20-week editorial, and I was the editor. We spent 6 weeks in Utah and Salt Lake City, editing on site there. After we finished the actual shoot, we came back to LA, and we cut for 14 weeks in Agoura Hills. It's kind of funny because it's Salt Lake City, we're editing in the snow, it's like 10 below. We got to Agoura Hills, it's about 105 degrees. And our edit bay didn't have air conditioning after like 5 in the afternoon, the building would shut it off. So as you know, editors have long days, so by the end of the day, it was getting 90 degrees in the edit bay, and I'm looking at this guy in the snow, so it was pretty crazy. Most people think that we have, even on any budget, you have a huge crew. Our post crew is only 4 people. It was myself, my assistant, a VFX editor, and the director, who also can edit, Scotty Wah. He was really good. So 4 of us were sharing 3 edit bays. So for any budget, and even for a 6K film, it's not about 20 stations or 30 people. We accomplished this with 4 people, which is pretty impressive. We had basically 100 hours of footage. And like I said before, we were onlining. We're just cutting the normal footage right out of the gate and moving forward with no proxies, no rendering. We did everything within the Premiere Pro and Creative Cloud cycle. Obviously I cut in Premiere Pro. All of the effects were done at 6K in After Effects. For most people that know or don't know, effects are usually done at 2K. And then if you deliver for a 4K final film or whatever, they'll up-res the 2K to 4K. But we did everything at 6K, so you can imagine the processing time, the renders, the stuff we had to have to be able to do that. It had never been done before. We tested all sorts of systems, and Premiere Pro was the only system that actually handled this in real time. Audition is what I used to do all the audio before we handed it over to the professionals at E Squared in Hollywood to do the final sound mix. And as I said, there were 205 VFX shots, all done at 6K all the way through. And then at the end of the show, we actually created the 4K DCP within Premiere Pro using the Raptor Pro plugin. And that was nice because usually you got to pay whatever, $5,000, take it somewhere, make your DCP. So we could literally make a DCP, screen it wherever we wanted for the last year. And if we wanted to make any change, we just go inside and take it. And just so you know, our film, which was under 2 hours, took about 6 hours to make the DCP. So it's nice to be able to just hit render, step away, go get a coffee, and we came back, we had a DCP that was ready to go. As you can see, I'll show you some behind the scenes. We shot this in Salt Lake City, up above Sundance. It took about an hour to get to set for the crew every day, and they would have to take snowmobiles and helicopters to get up there. We shot with just one red camera and some beautiful 65 millimeter glass because we were shooting 6K. We'd have really nice lenses to cover this. At the end of every day, the team would bring the footage down to me at my edit base at the foot of the mountain, and I would have to dump the footage. We basically created about 3 or 4 terabytes of footage every day, and we'd have to dump that overnight because you couldn't just jump on it. So the next morning, I'd be able to come in and start reviewing the footage, seeing what's going on, moving forward. So this is the environment that we were living in. And for snow film, really funny, quick story. Until we started shooting, there was no snow. There was snow on the ground, but nothing in the air. The morning that we started shooting was the biggest blizzard in like 3 years in Salt Lake City. So all the stuff that we got on screen was actually practical. I think there was only about 1 or 2 shots we added fake snow in plates after. Everything else was legit. And I'll be able to show you in a minute what some of that looks like. Here's what's really important. In terms of why did we shoot 6K? It wasn't some promotional stunt like, oh, let's do 6K and do this. It was because of this Barco format, which I'm going to show you about. The top right image is the full sensor, the red 6K image. That's what we captured. For the regular screening of a normal film in one screen, we had this 4K extraction. This is a 2:7:6 aspect ratio, which is the same as the Hateful Eight. It's that super widescreen aspect ratio. So we basically cropped the image this way. But what's important to note is that black area is where we can reposition the image. So we can move that frame anywhere within that black to help us make a better frame if we needed to, because we started with that. So that's what we would show on one screen. The Barco process, this is the frame for the Barco. And the reason we shot 6K is because it literally is 6K from one side to the other. It's 3 2K projections that are occurring on the screen when we do the Barco. So we had to have a full 6K image because you can't up-res 2 or 4, just loses that touch. So we could not reposition left or right, but we could go up and down. And as you can imagine, I basically had to edit the whole film twice. Once in this format, and then once in this. And I'm sure you can imagine if there's a close-up, you're going to have some really weird things to deal with, repositions and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we did 6K, and that's the different formats we're dealing with, from capture to the 2 delivery formats. This is the Barco Theater that we're talking about. Again, it's a 3-screen process. There's about 18 or 30 of them now in the United States. There's 3 in LA, 1 downtown, 1 on the west side, and 1 in the valley. And each screen is the size of a regular movie theater. So it's a very immersive, wraparound, cinematic experience. And so this is where you'd view it and what it would look like when you're actually in the theater. This is just, I got really close. This is not a seat that you'd usually sit in to watch the movie, but I just got really close to show you like the wraparound and where the seams are. The seams are almost invisible when you're sitting back, and they keep improving it. So this is the first film ever that the entire film is being shown this way. Until now, it's just been pieces and parts of other films. To give you a taste, here's just a quick teaser that we have for the film. The film is coming out later this year, so I'm kind of limited to what I can show, but this is a teaser that we do have right now, just to give you an idea of the scope of the project.
I don't really know what it is I want to say, but it doesn't look like I have too much time. I just want you to know that I'm okay with how this ends. And then I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. That's funny. We only get to live life forward. It never makes any sense until we're looking back.
So that's just a quick peek into the film. And as you can see, like with those vistas, with those outdoor elements, with all this mountains and stuff, it really suited both the regular format of being widescreen and that Barco thing. And man against nature, it was a beautiful shoot. Let me get into some of the technical stuff in terms of what we were using to create this film. We vetted all sorts of systems, every system out there, every Mac and PC thing. We ended up using PCs because we could load them up better, and to be honest, the Dell Precision Tower, which is a 20-core monster with 128 gigs of RAM, that was the only system that actually got us playback of the 6K stuff. I don't know if anyone's tested it out, but like I was on this Mac trash can here, setting up my project. I couldn't even get like 1/16 playback of the 6K files. They're just too beefy. So this Dell Precision, we can get half-res playback, which you can imagine 6K at half-res is 3K on any monitor is going to look amazing. Like it's just so crystal clear already. So that was the system we used. We had the NVIDIA cards, which were great. They just helped us chug through everything. Killer render times. The other station, we only had 3 stations. The third station was an HP quad-core workstation that we used to log footage, to transfer stuff between the other systems, and also to do some of the After Effects, only because when you have a single image frozen, you can get away with stuff if you're matting stuff, and we did a lot of Photoshop stuff, replacing skies, mapping faces, matching stuff, so I'll get into that later. The 34-inch Dell curved monitors I really like. They're like this wide, and I like to have a really wide timeline so I can see everything. I'm a visual person. I prefer a longer, wider one like that. And then we had the 4K Dell at each station as well, so we can pixel for pixel look at stuff in our 4K extraction to make sure everything's sharp and pretty. Our storage was 64 terabytes, RAID 5, literally off the shelf, whatever you can get anywhere, with 10 gigabyte internet connecting all 3 systems. So if you look at it, it's really not a complicated system. It's a small team of 3 people, 4 people with 3 stations. So the most expensive item was definitely the Dell Tower because we needed that power. Without that, we couldn't have edited. We'd be looking at either fuzzy blocks going by or just wasting time. So editing 6K is not about, you got to throw millions of dollars at it. It just be economical, make something that works, and then we tested it out, and this actually worked. So we had to go with it, which is good. Overview of me editing, like on day 1 in Salt Lake City. I wanted to capture some of the stuff that was going on that most people don't get to see. So that's how my desk started at the beginning, which is usually clean, and then it'll go shithouse crazy later. But at a start, it looks kind of nice for getting going. This is our director, Scotty Waugh. He directed Need for Speed and Act of Valor. We had 4 people. He was the 4th person. He's also an editor, so he would have to kick someone off one of our stations if he came in. He said, make sure you show me the presentation. I'm a badass. So there's our director. He's looking good at the station. So, and as you see, like, it's not a complicated room. It's not a complicated anything. It's just really straightforward, which is all we wanted. When we're editing, especially for myself, there are some low-tech and long-tech techniques that we use that I love. And if you see here on the right, the pink papers, every day that we shot, we just say day 9. We would write down which scenes were shot that day, so anyone could come in and say, during looking at the footage, what did we shoot on day 29? Where's that scene? It's really simple. It's really easy. We do that. And on the left is our mood board, whatever. We liked wolves for some reason, so everyone was posting pictures of wolves, and we had our scripts up there and our schedules and contact info. So again, it's just something to have tangibly around. This is our scene board. There were 140 scenes in the film. Every time a scene was cut or logged into the computer, we'd make a green or blue mark. Anything that was excised or taken out of the film, we'd do the red X. So of the 140 scenes, I think we cut 20 scenes by the end. But this is, again, just a visual representation that we use, so everyone on the team could be like, all right, what did we cut? Is that scene ready? You could see, like, if you have, like, 10 scenes in a row, you're like, all right, let's watch that sequence. Or if you're missing something, you can go in and do that. So I think it's important to be organized, and as an editor, that's one of my most important things I like to do is be organized so everyone can be on the same page. The last thing we did for that organization is the cards, the 3x5 cards. The whole film is here. Every row is a reel. And just like on Deadpool, there are 6 reels to this film. Every project was contained within those 6 projects. Every reel, the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they're about 10, 15 minutes each. And so we got to see visually what the reel looked like, the flow of the film, and I guarantee we started swapping cards everywhere, trying different techniques, seeing how to make the film. But again, an easy analog way to be able to control the flow of the film and everyone to be on the same page to see what we're actually doing. This is our edit suite at the bottom of the mountain. Every day the team would group up here, and then they would drive past the top of that mountain every morning to go shoot in the wilderness using snowmobiles to get there and then on foot. And at the end of every day, they would drive everything back to this building where I was in a cave basically 10, 12 hours a day cutting for those 6 weeks. But it was not a bad location, if you ask me. This is my basic timeline. When I'm logging, this is the innards of Premiere Pro. What I like to do is I like to stack the timelines. Here I have 3 of them. I can do more if I want to. Like some people call it the pancake timeline or whatever. But I just like to visually be able to organize my project so I can see a lot of footage and go in that way. The little green markers on the bottom timeline here, everywhere there's a green marker, what I did was on the footage, anytime there's a new scene or a new take, I would just drop a marker so I could use my keyboard shortcut to go next shot, next shot, next shot. So I go right to the slate so I know that I'm looking at the take I want. If a director asks me, show me scene 24, take 5, I have to be able to get there right away. There's nothing worse than having a director ask for something and you're like, yeah, let me just find that. You can't, as a professional, you have to be able to know where your footage is, find it right away, and drill down to it. So again, organization is critical, and this is like how I start my edits. Once again, inside Media Browser, this is how we shared projects. What we had to do was, every reel was its own project, and it would live inside a folder. We would use this system here to go to the reel that we wanted to work on. So if I'm working on reel 1 and someone else comes in, they want to work on reel 1, what we had to do was we had to scream out basically, who's in reel 1? I'm like, I'm in reel 1, don't go in there, don't touch it. I'm like, all right. So obviously since Premiere has been updated, now they have the group sharing program where you can lock something or you can at least have a visual cue where you know someone's in a reel or a project so you shouldn't go in there, which would have been great, but this was a year ago that we were editing, so we had the vocal system where we had to scream out that I'm in this reel, don't touch it. But that's really, again, really important. You don't want to have someone overwriting your work, and you can't have that. Like, that should never happen. One thing that's really important, again, the sequences. What we did on our system is every day that we shot, we would have one long sequence with all the footage chronologically as it was shot that day. It might be 4 hours of footage, 5 hours of footage, all in one timeline. But once we had it all strung out, we knew where all the footage was. It was a good starting point. And the way I work, I prefer this to metadata. If I have to tag something on the way in, I usually don't have time. And if someone else is tagging footage with certain metadata, if I don't see it, I'm like anal that way. If they mess up something or they forget something and I look for something that's tagged snowboarding and they miss the shot, it won't come up in my search. I'm like, I know that shot exists. Where is it? Again, I'm a visual person. I like to go through the timelines and see all the footage, make my own markers and see things so I'm comfortable. And with the markers, what happens is every time I drop a marker, this panel inside Premiere Pro will give me a thumbnail of where I dropped the marker, and you can see that the takes and the scene numbers are all listed. And there's a search bar at the top that I can search. So if I have 1,000 shots in a timeline, 1,000 markers, I can literally say shot 78E, and it'll just give me that shot. So for me, that's the easiest way to be organized and bounce around. Let me do this. So this is my 6K edit bay in Salt Lake City. You can tell it's really classy because we have the black plastic Duvetine garbage can wrap on the windows, keep the light out. And I also have a very shameless Deadpool Adobe mug plug that I did use every day. I drank my coffee every morning, but that's very shameless. I apologize. It's terrible. But this is the suite. The TV behind is a 55-inch 4K Sony TV that was getting 4K directly. Again, we have 6K footage, and our timeline was either 6K or 4K, depending on the barcode or the extraction. So we were basically pixel for pixel. It was just, it's really a real treat to edit at 4K, to say the least, to be able to see that. Again, my key proponent is like editing begins with organization. You can be creative, you can be amazing with technology, but if you and your team don't have everything set up the right way before you start, you're going to fail. Something's going to drop out, something's not going to work, and you're going to be chasing your tail down the road. So I always stress above and beyond what system you're using is like just please edit, and especially if someone else comes in later to the project, a new member, if it's set up properly, they can find stuff instead of this chaos, which usually does happen at the end of a production. I'm sure you start with a good intention. By the end of the show, it's just chaos. But try and start early with organized setups, and you'll be off and running. Let me go further here. One thing I wanted to stress again this is on the top is a full day's worth of footage with all the green markers for each new scene. On the bottom is one of my timelines for a sequence that I was cutting. What I love about Premiere Pro, and again, this stacking of timelines, is any of the shots above that I want to use, I can literally grab it and drag it down into this timeline, which is my active timeline. When I do that, it still remains in the top main timeline, the master. A copy is put into my scene that I'm working on. So it's non-destructive at the top. I'm not messing with it. I'm just taking a piece I want. And again, when I can scroll through the entire day's footage, you remember where certain things are and you can easily find it. That's the way I like to work. It's just, everyone's different, but this is the system I have. And with that wide screen, you can see there's so much real estate. It really makes editing a lot easier, a lot better. The other thing about markers that we discovered, which is really cool, and I used it in my presentation, is you can take a marker and drag the ins and outs of the marker and then write a message in that marker. So marker doesn't have to be just a dropped little tag. It can be as long as you want. So if I have the director coming in, I could say, look at the yellow marker. It'll say, director, look at this scene, or give me your take on that. Or here's some audio. So anyone that looks at the project can visually just read stuff. So it's a nice way to mark up your project and let everyone see what's going on. And you could drop those anywhere. So again, organizing and keeping things clear. One thing that most people don't know, just a little side tip, is you can put up to 24 hours of footage in any Premiere Pro timeline. This is 24 hours of 6K Dragon Red RAW footage. And even at half res, I can literally scroll through 24 hours of footage and see what's going on. I'm not saying you have to have a 24-hour timeline, but it's nice to know that if you want to dump a lot of footage on there, you can. And when we first screened the film, we had like a 3-hour timeline, the long version, just hit play and it played. So that's a testament to Premiere Pro. Again, this is just an organized timeline. This is when I'm editing, I like to remove all the other panels and windows. I just like to have the simple stuff. This is just a representation of some of my work. Here's just a little thing I wrote about editing personally as what I feel is important. I'm not going to read it. You can read it or give it a count, but I think the most important thing about the editing is every decision you make in an edit, doesn't matter if it's on a feature film, a short, a commercial, whatever, will affect and ripple upstream and downstream. So you got to be super careful. It's not some haphazard method that you're like, oh, let me just swap the shot out. You really have to think at a micro and a macro level about every decision you make. And certain editors are more compulsive. I'm one of those people. Like, I always have to see what the give and take is and the effect of it is. But you should always consider that. Like, make every cut count is a mantra that I use. Again, that's just me, but if you feel like it's important, then cool. When I first started, same thing. I have a script. We didn't have a script supervisor for the first 5 days, so I had to go through, make my own notes on the first 5 days worth of footage, and then I have my little notepad. That's how I start my edit. This is important. A lot of people ask, like, how much do you cut in one day? Like, what does a feature film editor do? Do you cut 20 minutes a day? You cut a minute? I went and averaged everything after 6 weeks. It turned out I was cutting about 3 minutes a day of footage that was completely good with dialogue, with ambience, music, color correction in terms of balancing some shots out just so it plays better. And it worked out to about 3 minutes a day. So in a given week, I would probably do 15 minutes, 18 minutes of footage. And this is footage that is ready to show to a producer. This is not something like, oh, check out my scene, what do you think? I'm talking like I expect of myself to present something, if someone's watching it, to be really, really tight. So I don't know the numbers for someone else, but for me, it's 3 minutes a day as an average. So it's nice to be able to represent that, because if producers don't know or directors don't know, they're in there every day. Show me something, show me something. I'm like, I'll show you as soon as I'm comfortable, when it's go time. So that's just something to consider. Then once you start getting notes, this is what happens to your desk. You get notes from directors, you get notes from producers, you get notes from the mailman, whoever's laying around. They're like, dude, I have an idea for this scene, man. I'm like, all right. I like to write things out and print them out so I can check them off. Again, everyone's different. I don't like to use software for that. I just like to use analog stuff that's tangible that I can hold in my hand to be able to share in that method. What was nice was when we were cutting, usually as an editor, you don't have a highlight reel, but this is a highlight reel of me editing. Adobe came out and shot some stuff, so it was kind of cool. But this will show you the Barco system. When I was cutting the Barco version, you can see we have 3 55-inch screens above me, which are huge. But those 3 screens give you that same immersive wraparound experience that Barco escape system needs. You can't look at it on a small screen. When you show it on a small screen, it's literally a 7-inch strip that you can't feel. So we had to have this wraparound system to emulate what the actual theater feels like. And so this is just a little quick little behind the scenes of what in Salt Lake City and Agoura Hills, what it looked like when we were cutting. Totally fake. They said, please move the knobs on that audio thing. I did not do any audio editing. They just thought it would look cool. Just a little aside on that. So this is, and again, so I had to cut the movie twice, once in the wide format for the regular one screen and once for the Barco. And that was definitely a challenge because, again, like some of the close-ups don't fit. You have to reposition everything. You have to blur the edges to give it that wraparound. Also, this is important with Lumetri panels. I got to grade a lot of the film. And if you could see here, we shot the whole film in daytime and we did day for night. So anytime there was a scene that was nighttime, I created a plugin, basically a preset in Lumetri that dropped the highs, pushed everything to the blue, lowered the contrast, and I was able to drop that on all the shots that needed that. That wasn't the final color grade that was delivered. Obviously, Technicolor did their own, but to have a representation easily, like in real time, if you think about it, you drop any effect on a 6K clip, it's going to be like, oh, I don't want to play, but with the Lumetri panel, there were certain things that still gave us real-time playback, which I think is really critical. So that was our editorial there. And it's some of the footage. Oh, look, Josh is very upset with something. You'll find out if you go watch the movie what he's upset about. This is just me in my edit bay. With the After Effects, we did 205 After Effects VFX shots. Most of it was Mocha, face tracking, all sorts of things. If you notice here, this is all shot at the day, and at the end of the film, it was all day for night. All this imagery, all this stuff with the trees, where you see the snow and the sky, we had to rotoscope and map that out because all of that was replaced with night sky with stars that we shot stills of. So if you see all the trees and all the branches crossing, you can imagine how hard it was to roto and pull keys off the white to replace it with beautiful black sky and stars. And we actually shot everything, because it's 6K, we shot everything with a Canon stills camera. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was one that shoots either 50 megabyte or 100 megabyte still images, because we needed that huge, literally 6 or more K across to be able to drop in. If you just used a small megapixel camera image and you blow it up, the stars all look like moons. They're like huge, and it obviously doesn't look real. So we had to have those sharp pinpoints. But the VFX, almost every shot had something to be able to swap that out. This one gives you a little better idea of like all that white in the sky and the clouds was replaced with dark skies and stars. And it was a lot of work. We'll be proud to show it to you. And we use Google Docs to be able to maintain control of all our VFX. John Carr, our assistant editor, created this document where every color represents the shot that's already signed off on, the status of the shot, where it is in the film, what's going on. And again, it's going back to organization. Like if you have something like this, then it really helps keep everyone in control. When the director or producer come in and they say, well, how many shots have we done? You can say, go look at the Google Doc. I'm too busy to answer your question. Go check it out. So this is, again, something that we use that really helped us in the process. Again, this is my 355-inch screen process. That's how I did the Barco version after I did the first version. And it may look small or big here, but like once you're in the room, the way it wraps around is really crazy. It's really cool. And this is the Barco screen in Los Angeles. I'm not sure who the two dudes are there, so don't ask. But that's what it looks like in reality. And you can see that even when you're sitting there, it's a real cool experience. Right now, I think, like I said, there's like 30 screens, but as of next year, they plan on having hundreds and hundreds of screens all around the planet. And I just edited another film in Barco that's coming out as well, so there'll be a lot of content coming out. It'll be worth checking out, like this new adventure. At the end of my shoot, that's what your desk looks like. It always gets chaotic and crazy. That's getting down to the nitty-gritty. Last segment here that I want to share with you guys is a couple of the other tools we used. We used Frame.io right when it was coming out. We had basically a beta. And for those of you that don't know, Frame.io is a panel inside Premiere Pro that you can share sequences with. You can upload stuff to it. You can send a link to a producer or director that's not in the edit bay. Every night that I got my 5 hours of footage, I would dump it into Premiere Pro. I would open the Frame.io panel, and I would drop it in there. So the next morning, it would transcode it to an H.264. The next morning, a link was sent to the producers and directors. They could log in on their iPhone, iPad, laptop, and look at all the dailies. So that really helped us in terms of having not having the directors or producers come in our room and say, show me some footage. Every morning they had all the footage available to them through Premiere Pro. And one other story that was really cool was a Sunday I was off. The producer called, they're on set, they had a match a shot that they shot 2 weeks before. They're like, we need you to go into the edit bay, find on day 6 this one shot so we know what we're shooting. I said, how about I just email you a link to day 6 footage? And so literally from my bed, I'm like, here's a link, check out day 6, and I went back to bed. And they were on the mountain, they looked at the day 6, found their shot. I didn't have to go in, so things like that make the editor's life and the producer's life a lot easier. And that's an option that you can do inside Premiere Pro. The day that every editor hopes and wishes for, literally locked. That was my timeline when I locked it, and you have to eat an apple when you lock something. That's a rule. You can check with other editors. It's a real rule. Eat an apple and some peanut butter. So that's a great feeling. When you lock something, I spent 9 months editing this, so this is a very special day. I just wanted to show you that. Last thing before we wrap it up here is, what we did was we made a DCP internally inside Premiere Pro, and this is the final project. It was a 5.1 surround sound DCP. We used a Raptor plugin. I think the size of it was like 200 gigabytes. And it took about 6 hours, but again, it was done inside Premiere Pro. And here's a quick thing. On the left, after the first month, I had my first cut, 2 hours, 49 minutes. And that's what it looked like. That represented about a month of work. 9 months later, this is the final result. This is my final timeline, hour and 32 minutes. So somewhere in there, an hour and, help me with the math, an hour and 17 minutes were cut. So you talk about killing your babies or killing your darlings or being judicious with your cut. That's a lot of footage gone from the film. But you have to keep cutting until the movie tells you that it's done. Like, one scene out of place can just kill it. But that's the final film that we created. That's what it looks like visually represented inside Premiere Pro. We had 3 surround mixes. There's the dialogue, the music, and the sound effects. And from that, we can create all our masters. And last point I'd like to discuss and show you is, when you finish something like that, we got to go to Amblin, we got to go to Steven Spielberg's private theater, and we screened it there because they have a state-of-the-art 4K projector, surround sound. So we had friends and family there, and you're not allowed to take pictures inside anything. I had to take this from the Hollywood Reporter to show you the room. It's like seats like 20 people, but that was a highlight and a reward of my career, to be able to go into a room like that, share it with my cast and crew, all our hard work. And they have a concession stand there, and I stole 3 packs of Reese's Pieces. I'm a big E.T. fan. They have it stocked. I still have them. I'm not going to eat them. They're staying in my fridge as a memory of that day. But for me, that was a great way to end the whole process, to share that with everyone. And last, this is just a couple shots from our stuff. So again, Premiere Pro is the reason we were able to do this, and this is not an advertisement by any means. We tested every system out there to see what could handle 6K, and Premiere Pro is the only one that really could handle it. So I give kudos to them, and 25 years of being in the business, I feel that we came along at the right time to use their software to make a successful film. So that is, yeah, by the way, for those that don't know, I was a professional hockey player for 10 years, and they needed a hockey player in the film. I made it in the movie. That's me. I'm in the movie as well. So editor and hockey player in the film when you go see it later this fall. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. And I thank you for taking the time out. I know it's a long day, but that's how we did the 6K workflow. That's how we did everything. And that's how we did it within Premiere Pro. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.